Say the words. We need more words. We need words on this podcast. We need words to fill the space. We need words to make up time, because if we do a podcast, then you need to make up lots of time with words. And so you keep saying words over and over and over and over again to fill the minutes. Welcome back to the Obvious Choice podcast. As always, I'm Jonathan Goodman. I've got Amber Reynolds and Wenzel Jones with me.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the full government name today. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Thank you for saying thank you.
Yeah.
Today I thought that we talk about the lasting laws of online training. And whether you are an online trainer, or whether you call yourself an online trainer or call yourself something else, if you work in fitness, you probably don't call yourself an online trainer. You make up some name that sounds fancier, like, oh no, I'm a coach, or no, I'm a mindset coach. It's like, bitch, you're an online trainer. It's like, call it what it is. And so whatever it is that you call yourself, it doesn't really matter. What you do is the same as kind of what everybody else does with your own little flavor of it. So the foundational principles of what we're going to talk about here apply to you. And even if you're in a different type of business model, my guess is a lot of these foundational principles are going to apply to you as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through one of the laws, and then we'll have a bit of a conversation with it. That having been said, there are 16 of them, so we won't have too much of a conversation of them, because I don't want to make this a two-part episode, which we're prone to do when we get long-winded. So no more words. Words? Do we keep saying words? Amber, how are you doing today?
I thought we were supposed to be moving this along. So, number 1. We got 16. Let's go.
Always good to hear. Glad that you're doing well. Number 1. The law of freedom. So the law of freedom states that it probably takes less money than you think to make a significant change in your life. I'll preface this by saying that everybody's financial situation is different, but one constant is that too few know what their position actually is. The first law is to establish a firm grasp of your finances. How much money do you really need each month to live and ensure people that you love are looked after? Figure out what that number is. If you don't know that number, it will never be enough. Once you know that number, consider how much you need to do in your day-to-day training business to earn it. How many hours does that take? If it's fewer than you're currently working, you can justifiably afford to cut down on your in-person hours and begin committing time to building your online training business. Now, the key to this is, if you know that number, you can cut down on your hours. If you don't know that number, you still might be able to cut down on your hours, but you'd never be confident enough to do it, or even if you did it, you'd still be really worried. So a lot of what this does is this gives you that confidence to be able to take a step back to work on something else that could get bigger and bigger and better. But you need that space, you need that freedom. And that freedom comes from the confidence of knowing, actually, legitimately, like technically, like how much do you need? So, but like that having been said, what balance you want is going to change. Some people do want to be fully online. Some people kind of want a bit better schedule and have a bit more to spend. They're both fine. Some people want to make millions. Some people are fine making just a little bit more than they are right now. Or maybe you'll find out that, like, I'm making enough right now, and maybe all this bullshit that's going on in the world actually doesn't affect me. All fine. All perfectly reasonable, all very specific to you, all very important to find out.
Numbers are the exit door from the sales roller coaster, just in general.
God damn, that's good. Say that again.
The numbers are the exit door from the sales roller coaster. If you want to get off the roller coaster of sales, know your numbers. It becomes
How do you come up with this shit?
Well, this isn't something that I came up with today. This is something I used to tell to my agents when I was doing insurance, because I had this whole team of highly volatile sales agents, and they freak out. I didn't make a sale today. Okay, what's your closing percentage? What's your presentation percentage out of the appointments that you set? How many of those people do you actually see? Let's backtrack it for 6 months. And this says if you did 2 more presentations today, you probably would have closed the sale at an average of $500, right? So when you know your numbers, like you said here, just don't freak out as much. This is the number one thing that I talk to our students about when they're jacked up about whether or not they got a sale. I'll say, hey, do you know your numbers? And they'll say, what does that mean? And et cetera. I'm finished talking.
What's that famous saying? People underestimate what they can do in 10 years and overestimate what they can do in 1.
Probably so. I've never heard it, but that sounds right. I
It's-
felt that.
When you're in the muck, when you're in the day-to-day, everything seems like it's much more important than it is on a greater scale. When you zone out, then it becomes much easier to say, oh no, these patterns are actually good. But there's some up and downs in these patterns. The problem is you can't zone out on the future, you can only zone out on the past.
Right.
And so the future is always going to be nebulous.
Wow. What section of the book is that quote in? That's pretty good. You should write that down, John.
100 fucking % in the book, my friend.
That's awesome. I'm going to be quiet.
You bet. I think
we-
that's in
are-
chapter 2.
Are we not on
still
the
don't
5th
know-
out of 16 yet?
I still don't know
stalled,
whether I'm
John.
calling it chapter 2 or lesson 2 yet. I don't know if it's lessons or chapters. Okay, the
Call
second law.
Ass whoopings. Ass whooping 2. That's what I would
That
call
would
it.
actually be really, really fun.
Right.
I know. Okay, number 2. Number 2 is the law of easy. And this law states it's never as complicated as you have been made to think.
Jesus.
Go on.
Can we just dedicate this to all our students? Can we redistribute this? Because my God, Amber, you want to talk about this?
I want to pray to the Lord and Jemima, sweet baby
right.
Jesus.
sweet Lord of Jesus.
Sweet Lord and Jemima Jesus.
I'll give this one to Amber.
If it's complicated, then you're probably fucking it up. It's probably- And I say that because that's my natural inclination, is to make things complicated. And so, like, I let my brain do that, and then I look at it like, okay, now how do I make it easy? Because I have to get it out of my system first. So
Well,
I do
here's-
that because I do it.
To me, the crux of the issue is what we spend money on and what we hire out. We all feel like we need to be useful if we're getting paid money, and I feel like a lot of us in this job, I feel like a lot of us in a lot of jobs, but I think a lot of us in this job have this kind of nagging feeling under the surface that perhaps we do admit or we don't admit to ourselves, that we don't actually believe that we're worth what we're charging. And so we almost feel like we need to justify that worth by touching stuff, by doing things, by constantly complicating the process in order to justify, largely to ourselves, not to our clients, that we're worth the amount that we're charging. The problem is that a lot of the time when we overcomplicate things, we actually make it worse. And so, in essence, what you're doing when you're complicating something because of your own insecurity is you are actually solving the problem in a worse way than if you were to simplify it and just let things be and go out and like enjoy your day. Everybody's like, oh, I know, I want more freedom. Oh, I want to be able to spend time with my family. It's like, well, you can now because you don't need to do 3/4 of the shit that you're doing. But it's this bubbling insecurity under the surface that you have is not allowing you to do that.
Isn't that a microcosm of our industry though? Overcomplicating thing. Like people would rather fail doing 75 hard 6 times
Sure.
than work out 3 times a week for a year straight. Like, because 75 hard is complicated. Look at me, I'm doing stuff.
What is important? Okay. In fitness, the most important things are to exercise or move in some way every day. All right, start again. In fitness, the most important things are to move in some way every day, to sleep well, to drink water, and to eat a remotely healthy diet.
Somewhat.
What sells the most? Detoxes,
75 hard and keto.
supplements, keto, diets,
75 hard.
whatever. So what's going on here?
It's the bad medicine effect, right? If it tastes bad, it must work.
If it tastes bad, it must work.
That's awesome.
There's a placebo effect in there. That's something I never thought about. Placebo effect is fascinating. I love
When you know
placebos.
it still works.
I love placebos. I love placebos, man.
This is why I
think
don't
about-
trust my brain. It's because
Well-
of that phenomenon right there.
There was a really fun example of it was a Tylenol type company. It was in Europe somewhere, so it was a different name, but they got sued out the wazoo and they lost because they had all of these different pills for pain medication. And the pills would say, this is special pain medication for low back. This is special pain medication for menstrual cramps. This is special pain medication for headaches, or whatever, right? Very specific. Because what they were trying to do was they were trying to take up more shelf space. And then somebody came in and they said, it is the exact same ingredient breakdown in these. Your labeling is bullshit.
Wow.
But actually, I would argue that what they were doing was actually brilliant.
Yes.
Do you have back pain? Taking a Tylenol that's specific for back pain with the exact same medicinal breakdown as a Tylenol that is specific for menstrual cramps is going to help your back pain more than a generalized Tylenol that is just for everything. And it's pure placebo. It is pure placebo.
Right.
But then think about why... so the way that pharmaceuticals work, I know this partly because my dad worked in the industry for like 10 years, but I also know this just because the pharmaceutical industry is fascinating. The way that pharmaceuticals work is that once somebody patents something, the patent exists for 10 years and then it's a free-for-all. And that's why older medications always have no-name brands, but newer medications don't. So, and in different countries, it's a little bit different, but that's generally about how it works. But why then, after 10 years... and the patents run out, and all of the other companies that make these no-name brands, these medications, why then do the name brands that are a third more expensive, why do they still exist? Why does anybody buy them? It is the literal exact ingredient as Tylenol or no-name ibuprofen. It's the exact same. You look at the ingredient breakdown, it is the exact same thing. Well, it's because most people actually buy both. And then when they have a headache, they think to themselves, do I have a $5 headache or a $2 headache today? And they take the appropriate pill.
Oh, man.
It's placebo. It's fascinating.
It makes me think of the Love Your Leather and being a big company but acting small. I feel like that fits in that category.
Also in the book. We won't ruin that one.
Okay. Moving on.
I love that company.
Fine.
Number
Keep your secrets.
three is called the Law of High Yield. I actually had to sign, part of the contract that I had to sign, they were really worried about this with me, HarperCollins, was that I wouldn't publish too much content of the book separately from the book. And it's such a weird line because it's just this the best marketing ever on the planet is to publish stuff from the book, but I can't actually, there are certain things that I can't do and I can't create with the content from the book.
Makes
and
sense.
I also can't create other things that I sell with the same content. Which is kind of, it's a weird kind of line that I've never even thought about, but makes sense to have to cross. Number 3 is the Law of High Yield. And this law states, free up time first, passive income comes later. If you want to make an extra $50,000 this year, you have to sell 1,851 ebooks at $27. It's a lot of people to sell to because ain't nobody buying more than one ebook. So what that means is that if you want to make $50,000 this year and you're selling ebooks, you have to find 1,851 humans to sell to. Holy shit. You can't even get 10 clients, bud. And I got news for you. It ain't any easier to sell a $27 ebook than it is to sell somebody hundreds of dollars of coaching. To make that same $50,000 this year, you need 21 clients willing to pay you $200 a month for online coaching. All of these are excluding taxes and any associated fees, but there's not a lot of associated fees, and they're the same, and the taxes are the same. It is a lot easier to find 21 great customers than it is to find 1,851 shitty customers. Not only that, a lot of passive income type exercises, like selling ebooks, requires a lot of upfront time investment to write, significant financial investment to have it designed and edited, and you don't even know if anybody wants to buy this goddamn thing. And even if they do, they're going to give you $27 one time. And yeah, you can create it and sell it for a lifetime. And yes, passive income is a wonderful thing. And yes, this could be the entry to a funnel that is going to push people towards coaching. But I've sold a lot of coaching myself, and I've helped a lot of people sell a lot of coaching. And I can tell you right now, you don't need it. And if you're sitting there and you're like, I really need to get 20 or 30 clients, maybe if I have an ebook to upsell them, you're talking out of your fucking ass. And I'm just going to call you on that bullshit. Focus on online coaching first. Yes, it's still technically trading time for money. But you've taken back control at least of when and where you operate. Once you have a few more hours in the day, you can afford to spend time working on a project maybe that'll benefit you later. That's multiple income streams or passive income streams if you desire. You probably won't need to, because coaching is such a cash-heavy business and such a profitable business model that you will have a lot of excess cash. And what any rich person will tell you is the single fundamental truth of building wealth, which is that the best way to make money is with money. You're sitting there, I mean, you can't log on to Twitter and not see some 22-year-old kid celebrating and bragging about the money that they made while they slept because they sold $27 ebooks and a screenshot of their sales that popped in. Well, people bought microchips overnight too, and I own NVIDIA stock. People bought hamburgers, and I own McDonald's stock. Invest your money. It's passive income, and it's more passive income. Yeah, you're not going to see it popping into your inbox in $27 increments. So it's not going to feel the same way to you, but it's going to add up way faster than a lot of passive income strategies you ever could.
I've nothing to add on that subject.
Good. The law of time management, number 4. This law states, manage your time or it will manage you. I'm going to give you the example that every self-help guru ever in the history of the planet has ever given. Allow me to add to the pile.
Good.
Imagine. I'm thinking
about
just
it. Just
imagine for one moment. Just imagine.
Right. I'm deep in my mind's eye. Yes.
This is a thought experiment. Imagine that you have been given a bank account that's preloaded with a very specific amount of money. Do you know how much that money is? $86,400. And every day, imagine this. Mm-hmm. And it refreshes every day. But there's a catch. Can you guess what the catch is?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure where this is going. I think there's seconds or some shit. And go ahead,
At the end of the day, all of the money is gone, regardless of whether you spend it or not. What would you do? Knowing that the money will be gone and there's no way to get it back, the correct thing to do would be to spend every dollar to its fullest. Now, wouldn't it, Ren?
Absolutely.
Now, here's the spin that nobody expected. Each day has 86,400 seconds.
That is
you
unbelievable.
Didn't expect that, did you?
I cannot believe it.
I did not expect that turn of events.
What
and
a shock.
Now tell me, Ren, if you could go back in time, what's one thing that you would do different? Well, nothing. I wouldn't do anything different because all the mistakes that I've made have taken me to where I am here, so I don't regret any of them in retrospect. Bullshit self-help. Anyway, once each of these seconds, though, ticks away forever, it's gone. But money's different, right? Money comes and goes. And so, yeah, anyway, time is your most valuable asset. Buy it back, and when you do, spend it wisely. Let's just move on. The law of 5. This law states, if you must have a number, make it 5. 5 clients who pay you $200 a month is an extra $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year and an extra $60,000 over 5 years. The first ever program that I put out for trainers teaching them online fitness business was called 1K Extra based on this principle. It is still a foundational principle of the Online Trainer Academy. Get to $1,000 extra a month first. Scratch and claw and do everything you need to do. It is not going to be scalable. It's not going to be pretty. Do everything you need to do to get to that point. Simplify things. You need 5 clients to start. Doesn't need to be perfect. Doesn't need to be high-end. You don't need to know high-end marketing strategies. You don't need content. You don't need algorithms. You don't need paid ads. You don't need any design. You certainly don't need ebooks. What you need is to keep the focus. You need to ignore all else. You need to keep your efforts on gaining 5 customers, which means talk to humans. Have an actual conversation with people. Ask them advice, saying that you're thinking of doing this thing. Can I tell you about it? You give me any feedback. Now you have one more person who knows what you do. And then ask them if they might be interested or somebody that they know. Those are the conversations that you need to have to get to that first 5 clients. Once you're at 5 clients, you're rolling. You guys see this all the time with the Online Trainer Academy, don't you?
This is definitely a point where I would have interjected without question, because if there is a main problem that I see with students, there's probably 2 or 3, but this is one of the main things, right? Like, because it just don't, there's such an eagerness to show up with a first album that charts on the Billboard Top 100. Or no music at all. Right. Like, either I'm going to make the best album, I'm going to make like a Purple Rain in 1983 by Prince, or I'm not going to make any music at all. Because heaven forbid somebody tells me that they don't like the song I wrote and I have to go back and write another song, I feel like that would kill my career. And that's how they approach it a lot of the time. And I'm like, hey, you got to garage band this thing, man. Get your auntie and uncle out in the front yard, open the garage, play some shitty songs, have them go gaga for it and share it, and have somebody say, yeah, bro, that was actually sucked. The guitar riff was terrible. And then go back and do it again. And our coaches that we coach have a deep-seated fear of doing this thing for some reason. And for a lot of them, like you said about the 1K extra, like 5 clients would change their life as a coach. Like, if they got those 5 people, it's not a lot of money, but it proves that you can do it. And I mean, $1,000 extra is still $1,000 extra, man. That's a big ass shift. But they don't want to get the $1,000 because they're so concerned with coming out and getting the 100,000 right out of the gate.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. The efforts that they're undertaking are the efforts that somebody would undertake once they're already at chapter 5 of their book.
Right.
And those are not the right efforts to take. They're not wrong efforts objectively, but they're not the right efforts to take. You gotta, I mean, it's funny, you give the example of the garage band, and all of a sudden my brain takes me to the abuela in front of the crappy taco joint. It's just like, that's where you and I are different, I feel. I was like, you gotta get an abuela on a crappy plastic chair in front of the taco joint in front of your house and just be like, yo, who wants tacos? Because those are some tasty tacos.
Shout out to all the brothers out there.
Shout out to them. Yeah, man. Get some El Pastor. Get some pineapple on that. Right, Amber? Yeah, dude.
Yes. So yummy.
Amber's easy for pineapple. And I'm
Law
concerned.
number 6. The law of the properly planted acorn. Don't love the name of this one, but deal with it. This law states, a single acorn planted in improper conditions does nothing, but get the conditions right and an entire forest may bloom. Again, generic self-help, but whatever, generic self-help, I guess, has become generic because it works and because it's impactful. I feel like I've just heard these types of things so many times that I'm so skewed on it. But I'm going to tell you anyway. So this is Ralph Waldo Emerson, American essayist, and he said, the creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn, which basically is just saying, get started, which I guess at that point was something that people needed to hear. This is he died in 1882, so, this was a long time ago. But he died well before the age of information overload that we have existed. And so it was probably a pretty important message. There have never been more ways today, though, to get started. There's never been more people telling you what to do, more software systems to decide between. And so I think that Emerson had a good point, but I think that there needs to be a corollary. And the corollary is that an acorn planted in the middle of the frozen Siberian tundra won't grow anything. If you promote your business in the wrong way, nobody will listen. Remember what we said, it starts with 5, but you won't get but once you get those 5, you got to focus on the fundamentals. You got to plant your acorn the right way based off of foundational principles. And then it'll grow into a lot of force. The foundations, or the fundamentals, are listening and learning about your ideal client, i.e., shut your damn mouth, open your ears, that hole underneath your nose needs to close. Secretly, he was proud of his Dr. Seuss rhyme. Join the people and communities that they already exist in, and establish authority and trust within those communities. Those are the fundamentals. Anything to add really quick? Can I move on?
I got nothing.
The law of the evil drunk monster. While I was upset about the title of the previous law, I quite enjoy the title of this law. Therefore, they even out the law of the evil drunk monster. This one states, jealousy is part of feeling human. You can use it, or you can let it ruin you. It's important to treat jealousy like an opportunity. Some people are simply farther along the path than you. But if you put your ego aside, you'll find that you can learn something from it and grow quicker. I struggle with this one. But I've come to realize that while you can learn something from somebody else, you probably wouldn't trade lives with somebody if you knew everything that they had to do to get what they have. There's a lot of people out there that I admire, but I don't desire the lives that they live. And so I think that that's really valuable to differentiate those two. Say, oh, that person's doing really, really well. That's great for them. Ain't no way in hell I'd want to be traveling on planes to record all those podcasts like they're doing right now. I wouldn't put myself out there right like that. I don't want a camera filming me 24/7. No way, man. I get that some people do that. I get that that's probably the best way to become famous on the internet. But I kind of want to be able to sit in my backyard on a warm summer day and feel the breeze against my skin and enjoy a cold watermelon without having to take a picture of the watermelon, without feeling like I need to say anything witty about the watermelon. I kind of just want to enjoy the watermelon. And so I don't think that I can reasonably be jealous of somebody else, but I do think that I can learn from that person, even if I don't desire the life that they live. I think that it's still perfectly reasonable to admire them and to learn from them. But this is also me admitting that I feel jealousy too. I got an evil drug monster all over the place. And I think that's just at least part of my human condition. I don't know if that's part of the overall human condition.
Definitely. But the cool thing is like once you identify what you're jealous of, you can take action steps to remedy it. If you decide that you want to fix it, right? Like, so for example, for me, I'm super jealous of Ren. He's super like witty he can just, come out with the craziest stuff. And so on my to-do list is eventually to take an improv course as a form of self-development, because I don't feel comfortable being extra silly. And so like that's going to be something that I take to do that. Right. So I can recognize that I admire that in Ren, and I'm never going to do it like Ren because Ren is special, but I can find my version of it. Yeah. Right. And so it's just identifying it.
Ren also is like 27 years on you, so you've got time to learn.
Right.
Yeah, well, he's also better at being social than I am. I try not to leave
that's
my
fair.
house.
I'm like your father's age. I'm basically an uncle age for you. You can call me Uncle Rib from now on. I don't mind that.
I will call you Uncle Ren from now on.
Weird.
It is a little weird. It's weird when it's a niece. It's not really your niece.
Number 8, the law of deep work. The law of deep work. Going to continue to ignore what just happened just now and pretend that never happened. The law of deep work. This one states that in a world that strives to distract you Focused periods of effort are your differentiator. If you desire to finish anything important, it will require you to focus on that task and nothing else. Turn off all alerts, beeps, buzzes, figure out your sweet spot to work and protect that time. This is, if I had to say there's one thing that I do that I think makes a bigger impact on my ability to create work that I'm proud of on an ongoing basis, it's this. It's this law, and the way that I put this into play is I do 2-hour blocks where I decide on my top priority. Usually it's writing, but I decide on my top priority and I switch off all else, and I give myself a choice of doing that work or not doing anything and staring into space. And both of those are perfectly fine, and some days I absolutely stare into space. But when you give yourself that option to do the work or not do the work, but don't do anything else, most often what you find out is that not doing the work and staring into space gets really boring very quickly, and it's much more interesting to do the work. Social media, although, on the other hand, social media makes it really easy for us to believe that we're working when actually what we're doing is feeding our ego. Putting another tweet into the world is not going to fundamentally change the course of your life, despite how much it feels like you're working. I think it's valuable to reduce the cognitive load on yourself. It's Tuesday now that we're recording this, and I've decided that this week until Monday next week, I'm not logging onto social media once. Cold turkey. And I actually expect it to be hard in a way that is going to be quite jarring for me. Physiologically, I think that it's going to be hard. I think that it's going to feel like I'm missing something for the first couple days. And so I'll be posting content, but I have a media manager and I sent her everything in advance, and we have a marketing team that's going to be doing marketing stuff. I don't really know what they're doing, but they're doing marketing stuff, and I approved some of it that I needed to approve, and they've all got their stuff to do. And the only way for me to figure out how I functioned not using social media and how I felt about that, because I don't expect that I'll be off of social media completely forever. That's not the goal. But the only way to really figure out how I functioned is to go cold turkey for a little bit and see what effect that has on me personally as well, and my focus, and how I kind of adapt to that. But also what systems break. And the best way to actually figure out what systems of yours are going to break is to build a lot of constraints that are perhaps over constraints into what you do. And so you could do this as a thought experiment. For example, I really like thought experiments to sit down with a piece of paper or journal, whatever it is, or with your team, and to say something like, hey, if we could never generate another new customer for the rest of our life, if all of our business has to be directly through referrals or retention, what would change? For example. So you could do it with a thought experiment, or you can actually just go away and see what breaks. And when you do that, for example, it's like, I could never take time off. It's like, why don't you just try? Just decide that a month from now, you are going to be completely away, offline, for a week. Stuff's not going to go well, I promise. But you're going to figure out two things. One, you're going to figure out that it actually wasn't that big of a deal when the stuff didn't go well. The second is you're going to figure out what you need to fix so that you can take time off. Constraints can be really, really useful. I like the law of deep work because I think it's very valuable to keep in mind that you're probably going to find out that most of the time you're just screwing around when you're pretending to work. Put it into perspective. If you've ever sat on an airplane on a transcontinental flight with a toddler, how long does 8 hours feel? Yeah, time expands, doesn't it? If you've ever gone for a jog, how long does 13 seconds feel?
Nope.
Nope. Just nope.
I did that the other day in the CrossFit studio, shout out Collective Fit that I go to. They do this thing every month where it's just like one skill, one challenge they want to work on. And so this month, at one point every day, we sit in a squat. And so the first week it was 2 minutes, second week 3 minutes. We're at 4 minutes now. Starting tomorrow, it's 5 minutes. You're sitting in a squat. And it's funny because when we got to 4 minutes last week, I'm sitting in it and I just we sit down into it and there's like 10 people in the class, right? And I look up at the clock and I just yell, I'm like, 13 seconds? What the fuck?
Oh man.
That's funny.
That's running for me.
But you have 8 hours in your day. In most working days, you have 8 hours, even 5 or 6 hours. That's a lot of time. That is actually too much time if you're focused. I find I can only do 2 to 4, maybe 2 to 3, maybe 4 on a good day, hours of real work on any given day. I can't do more than that. 8 hours is a lot of time. Law of proactivity. We got to move along here. I'm talking too much. It's my fault.
This is one of my top 2 in this series.
Well, why don't you read it out then, Amber?
Okay.
Ooh.
Brought that one upon yourself, my
Proactivity.
friend. Suck it
I
up.
did. My fault for talking. Proactivity. Training a client online requires a more lateral and proactive approach. To me, this is the closest thing to magic that you could bring into your business. It is phenomenal what happens when you can be proactive. In-person training is a mix of proactivity and reactivity. A client has a pain in a session and you can deal with it when it happens. Ask them to move, establish whether it's really an issue, and decide how to continue. You're providing your services online and a client may be training in a gym somewhere in a different continent. As a result, you must take a much more proactive approach, anticipating what may go wrong before it does and laterally planning your workout to account for it. It's this law of proactivity that dictates the importance of focusing your online training efforts on a smaller subsection of the population than you might be willing to train in person. Knowing your client's life cycles is much more important so that you can plan for issues.
So why do you like this one so much? Because I think that this one was kind of a lot less interesting
Really?
than some of the others.
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just like I've seen all this shit so many times that to me
Yeah.
it's all uninteresting. But why, I'm curious why you like this one so much.
It's because this is the magic, right? When you have a client and you get ahead of something and the way that they react, talk about a
Yeah.
dopamine hit. They think you're just fucking brilliant, and I
Right.
will ride that high for forever.
What's
It's like
an
a guy
example
gives
when
a
that
compliment
happened?
and he won't do it.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Well, like when I was doing online coaching and I would do the video for week 3, right? Like, hey, like I know at this point you have worked out too hard, you've restricted your food too much, and at this point you're feeling like crap, despite me telling you not to do X, Y, and Z.
Right. Right.
So it's normal for you to feel at this point the F all of this. And then telling them, how to move forward. And they're like, how did you know I was feeling like this? And it's just like, because I'm a genius. Thank you.
Because
So,
it's
like,
been
those
3
little
weeks
things.
and everybody feels this way at the 3-week mark.
Yes,
Because that's the valley of
exactly.
despair, Margaret.
Yes. So it's just
valley of despair.
and the amount of time it saves you, because when you put in the front work of being proactive and then you look around and you're like, what do I do with all this time on my hands?
Right. Right.
And that's a really cool feeling too.
Cool. Well, that's nice. Yeah, I always like that because I found that one was a really easy way to explain. I would say to people, it's like, well, I mean, you got a client who's, let's say, a working professional who sits at a desk all day. You don't know for sure, but my guess is the ergonomics at their desk is not that good. So they're probably going to be in internal rotation basically all of the time. They're going to be kind of stuck in that position. And again, you don't know the space that they have in their shoulder joint or the orientation of their shoulder joint, and any assessment that you took from Perform Better or its associated partners is complete bullshit anyway, and you don't actually know anything that you learn from it, and so you can't trust that anyway. So you actually have no idea what their shoulder joint looks like, and you shouldn't pretend that you do. The same with whether somebody's glutes are firing or not. Like, just because you tap it, like, just a little, like just because you
Don't tap
their
the client's butt.
yeah, whatever, right? You don't really know. But what you do know is you can make some educated guesses. And so in person, you might lock somebody into a barbell movement, call it like a bench press. You might lock somebody into a bench press, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because in person you can test that movement, ask them how it feels, watch how they move, see how they recover from it, and decide whether it's going to be good or not. You can be reactive in that. Well, online, you can't do any of those things, really. I mean, you can ask them how it feels, I guess. You can get them to send videos, but it's not quite the same. But you can just sidestep it. You can just avoid it by being a little bit proactive. You're like, well, I know they sit at a desk. I know they're probably internally rotated. I know they're going to continue sitting at a desk. And I don't know what the shape of the joint, shoulder joint is, but I know a lot of people get impingement if they're internally rotated with their hands anyway. And so why don't I just take them into a neutral grip, turn their thumbs facing up, right, and get them to press dumbbells on an incline bench for no other reason than just across the board that's going to be easier on somebody's shoulder. And you're not going to have pain pressing. And it's going to be, for most clients, just as good of an exercise for their goals than something like a bench press might be. So it's very easy to explain, right, that way. And you'll find that just some exercises across the board are just better than others for online training. And that's a good example of one. Number 10, the law of fitness dictating business. This is probably the law that led to 1K Extra and the Online Trainer Academy. And the law states, always build a business that benefits when your clients do. This came about because I realized, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, that the way that many gyms operate is broken, and they still are. Because the way that many gyms operate is they operate with business dictating fitness. As an example, a perfect workout is almost never exactly an hour in length, or 45 minutes or 30 minutes. And that also changes over time. Depending on a client's goals, depending on what season of life that they're in, their perfect workout might be 20 minutes for these couple months, might be 40 minutes or an hour and a half these other times. And that will change. Fitness needs to dictate business. With the hybrid model, and the reason why I like it so much, is that a trainer can easily develop a custom payment structure for each client, where there's 2 items. You could buy sessions and a monthly performance plan. So if a client sees you in person, that client pays for your time. Okay, that's fine. They're not paying you to count sets and reps, they're paying you for their time. The time is spent on whatever the client needs. So then it's not you counting reps, it's kind of you teaching the client at that point. Maybe it's motivation, maybe it's an extra push, maybe it's watching how they're moving, maybe it's talking to them about recovery, maybe it's teaching, whatever it is. Sometimes it's to assess whatever the best program is, it's asking them what they like, what they don't like. The performance plan is the monthly fee for program design and access to your support and accountability. And those things I think should be split, but they're very, very hard to split in a conventional gym where you're kind of forced into what I think are very negative constraints around block scheduling, around location specificity, around certain types of equipment, space constraints. Even just psychological stuff in a gym where some people are comfortable, some people aren't comfortable. Like the business model in fitness is broken because fitness needs to dictate the business. And that's why I started teaching about online training. That's literally why. It's just like this entire business model is what did I hear the other day? It's like, it sounds super stupid until you explain it. It was a saying that the best way to solve the problem is to solve the problem. And it sounds so silly, but a lot of people try to solve a problem by solving all of these ancillary aspects of a problem or solving side problems. Whereas most of the time it's actually much better to look at what's the actual problem? It's like, well, the business model that most gyms operate under is completely fucking fucked. Trying to improve upon that or fix aspects of that doesn't actually solve the problem. Puts band-aids on it, maybe. Makes minor improvements, but the best way to solve the problem is the problem. And that's why a lot of gym owners now are starting to come to us with the online trainer mentorship. And they're coming to us to work on building an online fitness component or a hybrid training component into what they're doing. It's a massive additional revenue stream that's super profitable. Like, if you own a gym, your profit margins are what, 15, 20%? What if I could tell you that we can add a 60 to 80% profit margin to the same customers right now as an additional service? It's pretty easy. Yes, right? But because it's something new that you're not used to, a lot of gym owners historically have fought it. But more and more are coming and signing up with us at the Online Trainer Academy. So if you're interested in that, send me a DM on Instagram. It just says mentor if you're a gym owner or something. We talk about it. Might not be right for you, but we talk about it. Number 11, the law of language. This law states, set yourself apart by creating your own language around what you do. Starbucks. You don't order a tall, or you don't order a small, medium, or large. You order a tall, grande, venti. Those words mean nothing. How the fuck is tall small? It's stupid. All of it is stupid. But the reason why they're able to sell arguably a worse tasting product in a different cup than anybody else and charge 2.5 times more than others can. I had a what was it? I got a tall Americano the other day. It was like $4, and then they asked me to tip. It's like, God damn, man! I can come back to the shit. Make my own freaking travel mug. It's ridiculous. I don't have enough pennies for this. But nobody notices. Nobody notices because it's their own language. When you create your own language around something, there's no comparison. You separate yourself. Don't offer personal training, offer body transformation coaching. We made fun of it earlier on because it's completely ridiculous and we all know what it is deep down. But the reality of it is language does actually make a difference. I guess what I'm saying is that if you think that your client will see right through it, you're absolutely right, they will. Everybody knows that Starbucks made up language is stupid. But they still walk in there and they pay $4 for a small Americano. It doesn't taste very good. If you like Starbucks, come at me. Number 12, the law of reliability. This one says, when assessing a client online, validity matters less than reliability. We're running out of time. I'm going to get through this one really, really quick. Basically, everybody thinks that when they're doing assessments in the gym, that the validity of the assessment is what really matters. Oh, I need to know what their acromial space is. I need to know whether their glutes are fine. It's like, first of all, you don't know that anyway, and you're bullshitting yourself if you think that you know that. There's the Dunning-Kruger curve is strong for people who are personal trainers in the gym. When you're brand new, you feel like you know nothing, so you go to all these courses, learning all these assessment techniques, and then you're at the top amount stupid, thinking that you are the master of the human body and that you can assess everything. And then you're in it for a little bit longer, and you're like, actually, I know nothing that I can verify based off of the assessments. It's complete and utter nonsense. And so at that point, then, you're like, well, actually, the thing that really, really matters here is whether it hurts somebody or doesn't hurt somebody, and whether they're seeing improvements or not seeing improvements, whether they're resting and recovering or whether they're not, and whether they're performing the exercises well or not able to perform the exercise. And the best assessment is actually a constant assessment as the person is training, not to see whether they can get a score of 1 to 3 on some completely arbitrary, ridiculous line that they step over. Ask me what I think about the FMS. Fun backstory. We were told in the gym, this is many, many years ago, we were told in the gym, a gym owner decreed that all of the trainers have to do an FMS with their clients. And I said, I'd read all the studies on it. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And if that means that I don't work here, then I'm not going to work here. John is completely unemployable and disagreeable, but I still work there and I never did the FMS. But the fundamental difference, sorry, Grey Cook, the fundamental difference, because I know you listened to this episode, the fundamental difference though, when between assessing online versus offline is that you have kind of a mental shift where you favor reliability from assessment to assessment versus validity. You're not necessarily trying to get valid assessments. You're looking at the beginning of their online training as a day one, as a new day one, and you're choosing an assessment that you know can be reliable from one to the next to the next. So like a body fat measurement using one of those scales, bioelectrical impedance, has a 3 to 5% error rate any given time based off of rest, dehydration, sleep. It's useless. It's effectively useless. But tape measures are super reliable. What the tape says is what the tape says. And so as long as you can accurately give them the points for the tape measure, then like get them to wrap it around the ASIS on their hip, right? As long as you can wrap it around that appropriate point, then that is a very reliable measure. And also, you can send somebody a tape measure in the mail for like 50 cents. Don't you do that, Amber? Yeah, so Amber actually sends a tape measure with her welcome package to clients. When do you do too?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, with stickers on it. So
I have no stickers.
favor reliable tests over quote unquote valid tests when you're coaching somebody online. And if they've done other tests before, don't shit on those tests like I've shit on them today to a client. That's not a good thing. We're just like buddies here talking, right? So don't shit on the test like I'm shitting on them. Secretly in your head, you can if you want. But instead, just say to the client, look, I don't really know how that was done before, and so I have a really hard time trusting that. But what I like to do with every new client is I like to look at our training as day one. And so not to say that what you did before is wrong or invalid or was a waste. It was not. But it's all going to contribute, and I'm going to do my own assessment with you on day one, and we're going to look forwards based off of that. Is that okay with you, Margaret? And Margaret's going to say, yes, that's wonderful. And then we're going to move on. Number 13, the law of templates. Create the best program for a client and individualize as needed. Again, when trainers are at the top of the Dunning-Kruger curve, when they're at the top of Mount Stupid, when they're earlier on in their careers, but not too early, when they don't feel like they know anything, but they feel like they know too much, they get this kind of holier than thou kind of feeling where every client needs their own program, and that's what I'm paid for. It's like, well, actually, logically, that makes no sense, because if you have a client who fits in a general bucket of certain types of clients, like whatever, this is Margaret's postnatal, so she has whatever, at least one kid, and she decides that she wants to put on 5 pounds of muscle and reduce a little bit of her back pain. Like, you build a program for her. Well, your program is going to be more or less the same for anybody who fits that basic pattern. And so logically, if you build the best program that you possibly can in the world for Margaret, and somebody else comes in who's similar to Margaret, any program that you build that's separate is actually going to be the second best program. And so what you do is every time that you get a new program, you build the program for that client, but you turn it into a template for all clients like that, and you categorize it. And then over time, you increasingly improve those templates. And then when you start with a new client, you figure out whether they fit into one of the templates. They often do. And then you go through that template and you individualize it if you need to. And then you just adapt it as the client continues to progress. I'm ripping through these guys because I want to get through them all. Number 14, the law of attraction marketing. You got to change your marketing mindset. The old way to market was that you do something to a person in the hopes that they become interested in your services and buy. Instead of doing something to somebody, I think that you actually need to perform ritualistic and consistent daily actions that attract the right person to you. Let your geek flag fly. Show yourself, be yourself, put yourself out there. When you do that, the right people will become attracted to you because you're uniquely different in a way that they're uniquely different. You share an uncommon commonality, and that's where the magic happens. Number 15, the law of the existing network. We are ripping through these, my friend. This law states, everyone is interested in more leads. Few are interested in making better use of the leads that they already have. You've been unknowingly building a network of people who care about you for as long as you've had an email or social media account. The amount of people that say like, oh yeah, no, I created a new Instagram account, or I created a new Facebook account for my business. It's like, don't fucking do that. You're going to start new? You know how hard it is to start new on social media? Holy crap, it's hard. You got years before you're going to be able to make a name for yourself with this thing. But you've already spent years unknowingly building connections with people Even if you're not even if you don't post a lot of what you do, you just have all your friends and family and colleagues and everything like that from all the years. Some girl you met at a party one time, whatever. Like, some girl you dated in high school, man. I went on one date with this girl in high school. Her name was Sari. Sari Goldfarb. That's the most Jewish name on the planet. Her name was Sari Goldfarb. I went on one date with her to a hockey game. I remember. Nice girl. Didn't work out. Whatever. And we were Facebook friends. Like, I guess because we went to high school together. We didn't really know each other in high school. Like I said, we went on one date. I got a message from her 4 or 5 years ago that asked me, I mean, I wasn't training clients at the time, but asked me if I was basically like, if I could train or if I knew anybody who it was her mom or something like that. I hadn't spoken to this person for over 20 years. No message, no likes, no comments, no engagement, nothing. We went on one date in high school, but we were Facebook friends. And she saw me post stuff about fitness. And when somebody she knew needed something to have to do with fitness, she looked at me as that guy. As we've often said, it's the lurkers, not the likers. It's the strength of weak ties is a big part of the Online Trainer Academy. It's the strength of weak ties. It's all of these little weird connections that you built over time and becoming the obvious choice to these people over time. And if you start a brand new account with no connections, you have none of this. You are starting from scratch. Number 16. Look at this, everybody. We're making it. All these words. So many words, right? Number 16 is the law of identifying objections. A lot of people in online training, a lot of people in sales generally, when they start out, they're scared of objections. But the reality of it is an objection is an opportunity to close. If nobody's objecting with what you're saying in your sales, it probably means that they don't care enough and they were never interested. Far too many salespeople fear objections. One of the worst things that can happen is you don't get objections. An objection gives you insight into what the client really cares about. If a client feels like they trust you enough to object, then you can go and take some part of your credentials or background or experience or story, ideally a story with somebody else you've worked with that shows how you've overcome that objection, how you fix that. Your odds of selling to that client and helping that person increase. And yeah, that's it. In closing, be purposeful. There's a lot of different things to consider, but basically all of this is be purposeful, be yourself, and try to build confidence as much as possible ongoing in what you do, knowing that you're never really going to know what the hell you're doing anyway, and you're making it up as you go, and you're just a big blob of carbon and nitrogen and calcium and whatever anyway that's going to die one day. So you may as well just have fun.
Thanks for the existential crisis.
Yes. Greeting holiday message from a nihilistic Jonathan Goodman. Thanks so much, John.
I had to look up what the word nihilistic meant the other day.
Well, you've mastered it so far.
What is it?
Clearly you have it's just fatalist.
Really?
Yeah, good job.
It's not true though. I have always been kind of obsessed, perhaps too much obsessed with mortality, and I think about it a lot. I've read so many accounts of like old people on their deathbeds and like regrets of people in you know, in their last years and stuff like that. And I think it's been super helpful, but yeah, it is a little bit morbid. You know, just like what am I well, like what am I doing right now that I know that feels important to me at the time, but I know I'm going to regret when I'm 80.
I'd also like to wish a happy holidays to all our listeners out there in the podcast. Enjoy your families while you can.
I'm going to go make a tuna sandwich. Let's go make a tuna melt today. I haven't made that for a while. You take a can of tuna, you put it on a thing of bread and some cheese, and then you just like put it on a pan and like mash it.
Hey, John, can you recommend another episode, please?
I don't know. I don't have one. Is there
Do
one?
anything except what you're doing.
What do we got?
Oh, man.
Now I got to go through the thing and find one.
Didn't you do it before?
Number 136, Finding Your Way. If you're looking for another episode to listen to, check out 136, Finding Your Way, for absolutely no reason. Okay.
Good show, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye.